For millions of years, humans faced feast or famine. Our bodies were designed to survive those years of famine. But what happens when a society defeats the specter of starvation? We're going to be dealing with that right after this. Welcome, everybody. I'm Scott and Paton, and he's Martin Pytela, health coach at Life Enthusiast. Hey, Martin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Okay, well, life is about survival. There are times of abundant food, and there are times when there is little food. And that really has been how we have survived for millions of years. But before we get into that and fixing your metabolism, we want to start with this piece of advice. Stop taking bad advice. People tell you things with no understanding of basic bodily functions, nor our uniqueness. And this is why the banana fad diet worked for some people and the pineapple fad diet worked for others. And we talk about it all the time. And most advice you get is one size fits all. And I have a little piece here that I'm going to put in front of both of us, and we'll probably get half blocked out. And this is something I saw 3 days ago, and I thought, here's probably somebody who is a sweetheart. They have the best of intentions, and if you listen to this advice, you may be okay or you may not. And I'm going to read it out for those of us that are listening, you that are listening on the podcast. The 5 deadliest things about our diet are inadequate fruit intake, not enough fruit, not enough whole grains, not enough vegetables, too much salt, and not enough nuts and seeds. And so I sent this to Martin and I said, what do you think? And he thought what I thought. So Martin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, you know, this was written by a militant vegetarian, right? Perhaps a vegan.
A fringe minority of vegetarians.
Well, let me put it this way. Any virtue taken to its extreme becomes a vice. There's yin and yang in everything, right? Like the yin of things is you can be the kindest person, but if you're too kind, they will rip you apart. You'll give yourself away. Remember the story? You're in an airplane and they're teaching you how to fly, and the first thing they tell you, in case of depressurization of the cabin, we will drop a mask with oxygen. Put your own mask on first. And the reason you're doing that is you cannot help somebody else until you have secured yourself. Because otherwise, 2 of you die. Well, anyway, that's me talking about virtues, right? If you are virtuous and you help everyone else first, you all die. So let's go back to the vegetarians. So in genetics, our ancestors lived in a fairly limited terrain. They didn't travel much. They would be, you know, if you're born in Switzerland, you live in Switzerland, you die in Switzerland. Only a few guys like the sailors would get on a boat and sail from Spain to Caribbean or something like that, or around Africa. But there were very few that actually did traveling. Most people were born, lived, and died within about 10 miles of their starting point, which had you living on the food resources that are locally available, which genetically made all of us compatible with that. To give an example, if you're born in North Africa in a Bedouin tribe on an oasis, you have ample access to dates, figs, pomegranates, and camel milk. Very starchy, sugary things. If you live in, say the Switzerland I mentioned, you're going to be fed rye bread, aged cheese, sauerkraut. On Sunday, they will kill the chicken, and in February, in the middle of the winter, they'll butcher the pig. And they will treat the cow with respect and keep it for many years because it gives milk. And if you live in Norway, 60 degrees north, your growing season now is compressed into about 90 days. And the other part of the year, you're depending on animal food. You'll be eating cod, salmon, reindeer, maybe some sauerkraut that you put away for the long months of winter, but that's about it. So your genetics will be different. I'll give a real extreme example. Somebody living north of 60 in America would be considered an Eskimo and would live on whale blubber, raw seal meat, no vegetables. That's it. That's the diet. Raw seal meat, Arctic char, fish they get out of the sea, and whale blubber because they would hunt for whale. That's it. All animal food, no vegetarianism. Forget about it. No vegetables. So where does this leave us? It leaves us making a statement. The genetics of your ancestors predetermine what you're going to be eating, because if you try to take an Eskimo down to Florida and feed him oranges, you'll kill him. Just as surely as you'll kill the Bedouin that you move up to north and try to feed him the raw seal meat. End of rant.
That's a good one. So getting back to this, inadequate fruit, not enough whole grains, not enough vegetables, too much salt, not enough nuts and seeds. One of the things you said, and I don't know if it was on the show or if it was when we were just chatting one day, was nuts and seeds are only available normally in a very short period of time of the year, right? So, I mean,
Well,
they
are storable, Scott, so they will last.
Right, but if you're foraging in the forest, how many nuts and how many seeds are you going to be finding as you're foraging, right? Like not a lot. Whereas we get this, 2-pound tub of cashews and we chow down on it, every day for a couple of 3 handfuls. We're getting way too much of the nuts and seeds than we used to get, right?
Yeah.
So we're not saying don't eat fruit and don't have grains and don't eat vegetables and don't cut back on salt. It depends too. Like if you're in a tropical area where you're sweating all the time, you probably need more salt than if you're above 60 degrees latitude in the Arctic Circle where you're never going to be sweating at all and you're going to be hanging on to all your salt.
Yeah, and more importantly, sodium and potassium are the sodium-potassium pump. At the cellular level, the more protein you eat, the more salt you need, because salt is facilitating the getting nutrients in, toxins out. So the protein-rich diet has indeed a greater demand on this movement, and so you do need to have more salt. A vegetarian that eats lots of fruit and lots of seeds is going to do just fine on low sodium diet. They said it right there in that meme, whatever you call that.
Right.
Which is great. Okay. So if your genetics are tropical, if your ancestors lived in a very warm country where there is lots of fresh fruits and vegetables year around, then this is the ideal diet.
Right. And if they didn't, it might not be that ideal. And that's one of the things we talk about a lot is metabolic typing. So and the problem with these sort of memes is people look and say, yeah, like, okay, that makes sense. And then they'll try and live it. And then they'll wonder why they're not feeling good, which of course is the test. The litmus test is if you've been eating fruits and vegetables and grains and nothing else for the last 5 years and you are sick all the time, probably on the wrong diet.
I'll throw some examples in. In my 20s, I started practicing yoga and I started reading the literature, and it was like a yogi is a vegetarian and practice the ahimsa, which is the non-violence or harmlessness is actually the translation. And so I subscribed to that. I really wanted to do that. And so I went first vegetarian, then full on vegan. And it didn't take too long before I was actually quite sickly. I wasn't doing well because my background is Central European and living 50 degrees north. So then I finally realized the practice was developed in India. And India, for the most part, is tropical or subtropical with loads of vegetarian type of food available year round. It's darn easy to be a vegetarian if you have the Indian genetics. Or genetics? How do you pronounce it right?
Genetics. Yeah.
Here's where my original Czech their brain betrayed me.
So we have a question, and I think it's an excellent one. It's from Jocode. What's the best way to determine one's individual diet for best energy and metabolism? Which, of course, is where we were going with this whole show.
Yeah.
But might as well deal with this part.
I may as well answer that. So before I answer that, I want to give you the example that was rattling in the back of my head, which was this. Steve Jobs, the famous CEO of Apple Computers and Pixar and other things. He pretty much killed himself by being a fruitarian in his young years, right? He totally killed off his liver and his pancreas. And he died of cancer of the pancreas, famously, after having had a liver transplant and other things. And the reason it failed is this. Fructose is the sugar that's most present in the fruit that he was eating as a fruitarian. And fructose, well, I'll say it differently. Glucose is the single unit of energy that we are readily operating on. And glucose comes to us from starch. Starch being
Rice, potatoes.
Those are them. Starch is from rice, potatoes, and the likes. And so that's easy. The body understands that. But then fructose is actually a combination of one glucose, I should say differently. Sucrose, what we call sugar, is one glucose attached with one fructose. Glucose has 6 carbons, fructose has 5 carbons in its molecule. And glucose is readily digestible, fructose is not. Every single cell in a human body can digest glucose, but only your liver will process and convert fructose into something usable.
So that's why his liver was having such a problem.
So when you put yourself on a high fructose fruit diet, you will cause yourself trouble. Vegetables are not that. Vegetables like carrots and broccoli and rutabaga and all of that, that's mostly starch. That's the good old easy glucose.
Right.
But fruit like apples, pears, peaches, watermelons, they are heavily fructose dominant. And now here comes the important point for everyone to get. High fructose corn syrup, the deadliest of things invented by industrial food processors. Please avoid it like the plague. So fructose, some people handle it just fine, but many, many people do not. And if your genetics don't support it, then you're going to have a really hard time eating a high fruit diet. And
right. We're not talking about eating 1 apple a day.
That's easy. That's no
right.
problem.
It's like when you eat 10 apples and 2 pounds of blueberries and.
Well, the way you get there is you start juicing fruits, right?
Oh, juicing fruits, right?
Yeah, you're gonna do pineapple and apple and pear, and you just start piling it in, right? If you drink half a gallon of apple juice a day, I promise you'll be in trouble.
Right. Oh, growing up, working in a grocery store, we sold gallons and gallons of apple juice. I mean, hundreds of gallons of apple juice.
Yes, lots and lots.
Oh,
And orange juice is in the same category for
orange juice too. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's answer the question. So there are two ways. You can do that either in a shortcut, which means that you can buy yourself a $97 test on Life Enthusiast website. It's called Advanced Metabolic Typing Test. And that's essentially a shortcut. I'll take you to the results by having structured conversation with you about that. But you don't need that test. You can do it yourself by doing two experiments. One is a glucose challenge, and the other one is a protein fat challenge. And by challenge, we mean this. Eat a bowl of porridge with some banana on top and a glass of orange juice. It's like carbo shock. And if you really want to spike it, have a shot of whiskey with it. Carbo. And it will have an effect on you. And there are two effects. One is alkalizing and the other one is acidifying. And when you're acidified, you start being very impatient, start talking fast, lose your social graces, turn yourself into an anxiety-riddled creature. If you turn it inwardly, you'll be filled with fear. And well, if you're thinking about the future, it'll be imagining all the things that will go wrong. If you turn it into the past, you'll be thinking about all the things you did do wrong. Either way, it'll be just a anxiety-riddled nightmare. That's over-acidic. And the other emotion that comes with it is anger. If you're angry, you're probably too acidic. The other field is known as alkalinity, and it goes with being much more pleasant, less abrasive, less direct, less, more diplomatic. However, it comes with procrastination. It comes with despondence, if it gets deeper, hopelessness, and depression. So over alkalinity is just as bad as over acidity. You want to be somewhere in the middle.
And if you're over alkaline, you're probably having naps.
Yeah. The best solution for being too alkaline is to take a nap.
Yeah, because that happens to me when I have the wrong lunch. And of course, this is a stereotype, right? Of people that have lunch and then they're no good for the afternoon. Well, when I have the wrong lunch, I'm back and I'm laying down on the couch and sleeping for an hour and a half.
Which is right. Sleep it off. And well, the Spaniards have made a system of it. They call it siesta.
Right.
So they knock themselves out with a bottle of wine at lunch and then sleep it off and then come back to work. No problem.
Right.
So,
all right.
So that's the test A. That's the overly starchy, too much glucose test. And the other test will be your fat and protein test. So that would be, you can make a salad, which is neutral, and then pour a bunch of olive oil on it. That's a fat kick. You can take just a spoonful straight of coconut oil and lick it off the spoon. Just another fat hit. Or, I don't know, an omelet. 2 eggs swimming in fat. Eat that. Deviled eggs with mayo, with drizzled olive oil on top of it, something like that. You can eat it on celery sticks or something like that if you want. But that thing will provide you with a kick of protein and fat. So now we have 2 extremes. A lot of starch and a lot of fat and protein. And one will kick you toward alkalinity and the other one toward acidity. And they will be each other's opposites. And once you've figured it out, then you know what you want to do. You want to find a balance. Some of us need to alkalize because we are waking up too acidic. Others need to acidify because we wake up too alkaline. And both Scott and I are each other's opposites. I wake up acidic. I really have to work on not being abrasive and short-tempered and miserable. Scott, on the other hand,
I wake up and I don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah, Scott wakes up and he's a wonderful guy, but he doesn't get stuff done until he brings himself to, I want to get stuff done.
Right. Which
And
is hours.
Yeah, and for Scott, the antidote to being too lazy is fat.
Right.
For me, the antidote for being not too unpleasant to others is starch. So for me, actually,
I was going to say, Martin, the good news about this is once you understand it and you know your types, like if you have a spouse and you both know, and then like the spouse is not doing anything and just hanging around, like, you know, you need to have something that's going to make you acidic here, or they're complaining and miserable and picking at everything. Like you need to have something to make you alkaline, as opposed to just thinking, well, they're just being miserable for no reason.
She's a lazy itch. No, she's just not been fed the right starter.
Right. And that applies equally to people that are miserable in the middle of the day.
Yeah, like Martin's not necessarily an a-hole. He just didn't get his dose of carb yet.
Right, right.
And so for me, actually eating fruit is a lovely thing. First thing in the morning, and I do. Just before we started, I had a big chunk of watermelon. On the other hand, Scott, to bring himself online, he should have had, I don't know, a couple of eggs or something, a tuna sandwich, something like that.
I had eggs, some avocado, and hummus.
Perfection, right? And you're feeling balanced.
And I feel so good after I eat it too, right? Like I eat it, and then for hours, it's just I feel energetic and happy and healthy and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So the answer to the question about how do I find out is you find out by experimenting, because this life is an experiment. But you can make a shortcut. You can get the test. You answer about 120 multiple choice questions. And at the end, we will tell you two things: how you alkalize or acidify, and how you gain or lose weight. That's the other thing we didn't talk about. The metabolic dominance is the pH, and the endocrine dominance is how you gain weight or lose weight. We can help you with that, so that you don't.
And we'll link to it in the comments.
Yeah, what is the best diet for me? Well, again, the best diet is the one that suits your endocrine dominance, and we can help you understand that.
Okay. So our topic today was the absolute best way to fix your metabolism. So thank you very much for that question.
Yeah.
And
so there's a question that's coming through, which is awesome, which is, this is Jocko again. And
so the question is, does a saliva or urine pH test help to determine if alkaline or acidic?
And the answer is yes. And there are two things. So your urine tells you what your body's getting rid of. So you want to have your urine slightly acidic. If it's really, really acidic, you're dumping too much acid. If it's alkaline, then you're dumping alkaline minerals. Your saliva needs to be checked first thing in the morning before you eat stuff. So rinse your mouth with water, and then maybe chew on your tongue a little bit like that, and then stick the pH strip in your mouth, get it on your saliva, and that will tell you what the internal pH is of your interstitial or lymphatic fluids. And you want to do that first thing in the morning before you start thinking about food. Because I can tell you, if you start thinking about lemons, you know, like visualize this, cut a lemon nice in two halves, bring it now to your mouth, and just think about what it feels like to be sucking on a lemon. Now, as I'm telling you, my mouth is filling with my saliva, which it wasn't a moment ago. And your body will react to what you're imagining in your head. So you want to do this test before you start. And the objective is the following. You want to be somewhat alkaline, above 6.8 in your morning saliva. And you want to be a little bit acidic with your urine, which would be about 6.5, 6.6. That's the ideal middle. So if you're outside of those ranges, more alkaline as in 7.5 or something, or more acidic like 5.5, those will indicate problems, and you need to adjust that. And we can adjust that with food, and we can adjust that with supplements. Now, to speak about supplements, so we have a supplement called bicarbonate, which is bicarb, as in bicarbonate. The most famous of them being sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda. Now, you need to understand that if you just swallow or drink baking soda, you're going to alkalize your stomach, which is not desirable.
Right.
Your stomach should be acidic. But if you swallow it in the form of the pill, it actually gets through your stomach, hits your duodenum, comes open there, and that's where it should be, and that's perfect. It's going to help you with your health that way.
Cool. All right. So getting back to our topic about the absolute best way to fix your metabolism, I think what we've covered is probably the absolute best, but we made a 10-point list, which we don't have time to go through. But
no, let's do it. Let's do it in the next 15 seconds.
Okay. So right now, there's 828 million people, 10% of the world's population, who go to bed hungry each night. 46 million more this year than last year. But in the US, there's a different problem in that 42% of adults are obese, and Black and Latino adults have the highest obesity rates at almost 50%. So there's no doubt that we have a divide in the population of the world, and they're both going in the wrong direction. And so, when we want to take a look, we know why people are going to bed hungry. We're not spending enough money on food for them to be able to get it. And but why are 50% of Americans fat? So number one, and we've been talking about this for weeks now, is processed foods. No nutrition and lots of calories. Going to be a problem.
Yeah, calorie rich, nutrient poor. That's the result of the industrial agriculture. It's a bad thing.
And then drinking sugar water or alcohol. So here we are.
Which is, again, that's the ultimate. You now are not eating a taco or a hamburger that has a wee bit of something loaded with bad stuff. You're now reducing it to absolute nothing other than the sugar and red dye and some other ugly things.
Right. And we've gone from being agricultural and building things to sitting in front of computers, and we don't get any exercise.
Yeah, sedentary is a horrible thing because now you have loaded yourself with energy and you're not creating a demand for the energy. Yes, your brain does use up 20% of your glucose that's available, but that's only 80%. I mean, 20%. That the remainder is still looking to be spent. And if you overeat calories, and especially when you overdrink calories, you'll be in horrendous amount of trouble. Fatty liver and diabetes and obesity all at once.
Drink water. You hate to hear it, but do that. And when it comes to exercise, like make a plan, right? Like if you want to go to the gym with an accountability partner, with somebody else that wants to do that, because you're more likely to go if someone's waiting for you to go. The other thing is, like, I travel a lot. I'm right now in Florence, Italy, and I got out my Google Maps and I said, where is something that's 2 kilometers away that I could walk to? And so I walk every day 2 kilometers to a certain place, and there's so many little streets that I keep going down different streets, and then I walk back, and that's my 4 kilometer walk. I want to do it twice a day, but so far I've only been able to do it once. But you make some sort of decision, right? Well, it's when I go shopping, I'm going to park at the far end of the shopping the parking lot, and walk all that way to the store. Or I'm going to go and I really like this river. I'm going to walk along the river, and this is how far I'm going to go. Or I want to go to yoga, or I want to go to Pilates, or whatever it is that you want to do. And then you just make the time to do it. Like, you can't just say, well, I should exercise. No, what exercise do you like doing? And then what can you do to make sure that you're doing it, right? Which is really setting a goal and telling your subconscious, this is what you want to do. Every day this week, I've been getting up and I've been doing that 2-kilometer walk. I actually go to a juice place that makes fresh, cold pressed juice with turmeric and ginger in it. And I have that. And then they have this egg avocado on hummus thing. And so that's my goal. I go there, I get a reward. Now I got to go home. And I refuse to take a taxi. So I end up walking home. So no exercise, number 3. Number 4, seed oils.
Oh,
man.
Yeah, that's again the industrial agriculture. You see, what they've started doing is they started growing things like rapeseed, or also known as canola, and then the safflower, sunflower, and all of the other popular seed oils. They're easy to make oils out of, but the oils have been deodorized, refined, heat treated, all manner of trouble. They're super rich in omega-6s and not rich enough in omega-3s, which causes problems in our digestion.
Yeah. So if you see something in a clear plastic bottle that can sit for years on the shelf and it's an oil you probably shouldn't be consuming.
Yep.
And then we have the toxic environment, because one of the purposes of fat is to protect you from toxins that would harm you. So all of a sudden you've got some toxic material in your body and the fat goes around it to protect you. There's very little, I was going to say refrigeration. There's very little blood flows. Like, I have a pile of fat on my hip and I go have a hot shower and I'm under the hot shower and I put my hand on my hip. It's cold. So
that's because there's no circulation.
That's right. And
fat has no blood supply.
Stay away, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, fat is there to store toxins, but you need to think from the outside in. Industrial age produces a lot of toxic things. These toxic things can be in the air, in your water, on your food, in your cosmetics, in your laundry powder. It can be the flooring, the furniture, the car, all kinds of things that you have. And these are either heavy metals or volatile organic compounds, such as Teflon or other PFOAs, or what are they? The BPA that is used to treat plastic, or rocket fuel that's raining upon us, glyphosate on your food, blah, blah, blah. Right. All that stuff. Make sure you eliminate as much of it as possible, because it's destroying the health.
Yeah, and it's also destroying the rest of the environment, not just your internal environment.
Oh, yeah, it's killing our cows and the crocodiles just as surely as it's killing us.
Right. And the good news is if you've got a bunch of toxins stuck in your body, we have products like fulvic acid and humic acid that can get in and safely remove those things from your body. So and we've talked about those in previous episodes. And if you go to the Life Enthusiast YouTube channel, we've gone into great detail on a lot of those types of products. Number 6 is stress, because, hey, when you're stressed out, you get either thin or fat, depending on how your body reacts to it.
Yeah. And stress is really kind of a misnomer. You always have inputs. Stuff happens around you all the time. It's how you interpret it, how you react. It's not what happens, it's what you do in reaction to the input. So to somebody, popping sound from outside is, oh, the kids are playing with fireworks. To another person, it's going to be, oh my God, the war has started. I don't know. It could be either, right? But the point is that how you interpret what's coming in is great. And so it's really good that you train your brain to respond rather than to react. And respond is a choice. You evaluate the inputs and you choose the relaxed response rather than the over-the-top reaction.
Yeah. And some people, when they have stress, they don't eat. And other people, when they have stress, they eat more. I'm a person, if I'm under a bit of stress, I look for a donut. I have a friend whose father's very ill, and the mother is trying to deal with this. And she's gone from 90 pounds to 75 pounds in the last 2 years. So
Poor thing. Right.
Yeah.
So her stress response is not eating. Yeah.
don't look, I say, you got to look after yourself. And she says, oh, I got to look after my husband. Number 7, eating the wrong, it's the airplane thing, right?
Yeah, the oxygen mask.
Yeah. Eating the wrong foods for your body type, metabolic typing, which is what
Right.
we talked a lot about at the beginning.
Yeah. So regardless how healthy the ingredients are, if you combine them incorrectly, you will still end up with a bad result.
That's a great way of putting it. Oh, I'm eating really good food. Yeah, but it's the wrong really good food.
Wrong combinations. Yeah.
Wrong combination. Glycemic index, you talked a little bit about that too when we were
Right.
talking about sugar.
Yeah. Glycemic as in glucose. Glucose is 100. Rice, potato, and wheat is right at 100. Sugar, as in sucrose, is at 70. But HFCS, high fructose corn syrup, is at 87. It's dangerously ugly.
So the lower, the worse.
No. You want less.
Okay.
Fat is at 0. Protein is in the 30s.
Okay.
Broccoli is somewhere around 50.
Okay. Number 9, insulin.
Right. So insulin rises in your body in response to the glucose intake. The higher your glucose, which happens to higher the starch, when you get insulin, that is converting the glucose into triglycerides, which will convert into fat, body fat. So all of that scare about triglycerides and LDL cholesterol and all of that, it's all facilitated by insulin. But insulin is doing many other things. It's causing a lot of health problems long term. So having high levels of insulin is not a good thing. And that's why people who are injecting insulin on a regular basis have a shortened lifespan.
Right. Okay, we're going to have number 1 coming up right after these 2 comments. One from my friend Stan in Kenya. When I am stressed, I rarely eat myself, he says.
Okay, Stan. Well, you're not a Scot.
No, but that's right.
You're not a Martin. Martin, when stressed, is looking for food, something to pacify. I need a pacifier. That's what I need. But I'm too grown up to put a pacifier in my mouth. But that would probably be the right strategy.
Right. So, but this is an interesting question, right? Like, it's like you have a signal, you have information. I'm overstressed. Now I'm overstressed and I don't eat like Stan and I waste away. So that's not good. So is there, like, what can Stan do to make sure that when he's stressed, and maybe it has nothing to do with eating because we're the opposite. We eat too much. It's dealing with the core issue of the stress.
Yeah, you're on it, Scott. Stan needs to figure out how to meditate and how to reinterpret reality in a way that allows him to be relaxed about it, even if it's negative input. Right? Yeah, it's how you manage your mind, right? The transformational vocabulary. You're not mad as hell. You're just slightly annoyed.
Right. And then our friend Jacad, I hope I say that right. How much whole
Jack Odd?
Jock Odd. How much whole fruit can someone safely eat?
Well, if you're a fast oxidizer, you should divorce yourself from fruit altogether, because it just won't work for you well at all. So you have choices. You can have an overly ripe banana or a fairly green banana. You can have berries like strawberry, blueberry, blackberry. They are much less fruity than pears and sugary apples. With apples, you can choose those juicy sweet apples, or you can choose Granny Smith,
The
which
tart.
is more sour, but way
That's true.
less on that fruit index. So
And the other part of it is balance, right? I mean,
yeah,
we have all these different types of foods you could eat. So you don't want to be, like you were talking about Steve Jobs, you don't want to be a fruitarian and just chow down on all the fruits.
blow out your pancreas in the process.
So Stan has a follow-up question. Martin, what's the best
Concoction
to use when you have a severe cold? Oh, okay.
Well, so Stan, your body's overly acidic and it's dumping stuff out of circulation. So the number one suggestion I would have is get an entire pound, half a kilo of baking soda, put it in a tub of water, bathtub. I hope you have access to a bathtub, and you take a half an hour bath loaded with baking soda in a as hot as you can stand it bath. So that's to try and flush out of the body all the acidity that it's now coming out. The other thing is prevention. You need to find some way to not become so acidic that the body is going to be running what we call the cold. The cold really is a cellular response in your body that is dumping toxicity from now your top side. It's coming out of your nose and mouth and possibly the other way too. So the response to that is do the most alkalizing things. So that would be topical magnesium and orally chlorophyll. So that would be chlorella, spirulina, alfalfa, all the green things, green juices, barley grass juice or something like that. Those would be most alkalizing and stopping that process or accelerating the process. You really want to shorten your cold from 10 days to 3.
Right. And what about something like a sauna?
Awesome. Sweating. Yeah.
See, he's in Kenya, and I believe he's still in Mombasa.
Yeah.
I'm going to be coming down that way soon, Stan.
And take a swim in the ocean if you're by the shore.
Yeah, well, he could sit on the sand at noon, and he'd be sweating. It'd be hotter than a sauna, probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which reminds me, actually, I knew a hot yoga teacher, and he was in Langley, British Columbia, which Martin and I both know where that is. And it was summertime, and the heat, the thermometer thing that they had told you the temperature in the hot yoga studio and the temperature outside. The temperature in the hot yoga studio was 35 degrees Celsius. No idea what that is in Fahrenheit.
About 97.
Outside, how much?
97 or so.
Okay. And outside was 36. So it was actually hotter outside than it was in the studio.
Yeah. Yeah. The famous hot yoga is supposed to be done at 105 Fahrenheit, which would be something like 40 centigrade.
Well, maybe I had it wrong. Okay. So number 1 on our list, I actually have it the other way around, is the thyroid. So oftentimes when it comes to being overweight, we have some thyroid problems.
Yeah. Well, okay. So dysregulated thyroid is what is a huge problem for so many people. The thyroid gland is one of the things it regulates is your set rate, how much you're burning sitting still. So if your thyroid is turned down, it's like the idle on your automobile, well, on the combustion engine automobile, when it's idling at too low. When you turn it up, it's idling at higher rate, which means you're burning more fuel. And that's what you want in the case of thyroid. So people who have low functioning thyroid will have cold hands, cold feet, especially in the evening, and will have puffy eyelids when they wake up, and will have a lot more belly fat than everyone else, and will have difficulty losing it. And so the antidote to that is seaweed, iodine. Yeah, to be quick about the answer.
Cool. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. We're a little over as it is. Normally what we do, and we'll do it today because we've got quite a few people that are watching right now, we do we finished the show because we've covered the topic we want to talk about, but you may have questions. So if you do, put them in the comments, and when the little video plays at the end, we'll sort of sit back, relax, chat, and answer any questions that you've got. Next week, we're going to be talking about the vitamin D disaster. And we also have a few products we want to tell people about. These, I picked these. Hopefully, Martin, they're applicable to today's topic. The first one was maca root. And
that's awesome. Yeah, maca is one of those things that is a metabolic stimulant. Maca is grown at 14,000 feet above the sea level in the Andes, meaning it is capable of functioning in a stressy environment. So when you give that to people, it also helps us to function in a stressy environment. So it will crank up the metabolism.
Cool. All right. The next one that we wanted to talk about was selenium.
Yeah, selenium, iodine, B12. What happens is iodine stimulates the thyroid. Selenium supports the function of all the metabolic things. And B12, vitamin B12, is the vitamin that regulates how tired or energized you feel, among other things. It will also regulate how smart you are, how well your brain is functioning. So good show, Scott. Good picking. That's a very important and well put together supplement. 3 things at once, all of which are important to people who find themselves lacking in energy.
Cool. And the last one, because I knew stress was something we talk a little bit about, is Stress Ease, which is one of a series of herbal tinctures that I don't live without. I may not have it every month because when I travel, I can't always get every order when I want it. But pardon me, I will go through 3 or 4 of them in particular and rotate through them. And Stress Ease is one of the ones. Cordyceps is the one I have right now. Yeah. And I just think they taste terrible, but they're excellent.
Yeah. Cortisol ease that Scott just mentioned is great for people who find it difficult to let go of stress. There's this thing called the post-traumatic stress disorder. That can be a long-term problem where you are really broken because of some stuff that happened in front of you or that you lived through. But even the daily stress, some people, especially gamers, for example, if you're sitting at your computer, just going until, and then you say, okay, turn off, go to sleep. Not going to happen. You need to find some way to come down from all that excitement because you are in gear in full swing. Cortisol ease is excellent at bringing you down.
Awesome.
Stress Ease is an awesome product.
Stress Ease. Yeah, let's talk about Stress Ease.
Yeah, Stress Ease is a great product for people who find it difficult to deal with the general inputs. If they feel nervous, jittery, responding, what's the word? Well, remember I was talking about react versus respond. If they find themselves reacting rather than responding, Stress Ease is an awesome tool to help put a gap between the input and the response.
Right. Awesome. All right. So we come every week at this time, 2:30 Eastern and 11:30 Pacific. We're going to have a question period after the show. I know we've already got one question there waiting for us. One of the things that one of the purposes of the show really is to introduce you to Martin, because he's an amazing health coach. I've known him for 20 years. We've grown up together, so to speak, and had a lot of fun and done a lot of, and he's one of the reasons why I feel like I have the level of health that I do. A lot of the people that I know my age have tons, and I mean, it's just shocking when they pull out their pill box and there's like 10 pills that they have to have each time they have pills, not 10 pills in a day. And then some of the things that they get into are like, I have to take this for the rest of my life. And I have 0 pills. I mean, I will, right now, I don't think I have tinctures.
You have supplements. You are taking supplements, right? Oh, there it is. That's the famous one.
Yeah, nanosoma, I mean, it's not that I don't take anything for my health. It's just that I take stuff that has, so far as I can tell, no side effects and is all kind of natural as opposed to a petroleum product. So, anyway, one of the things that we wanted to do is make Martin available to all of you. So here is the link, and we will put it in it's in the descriptions. Because you can go there and you can have a 15-minute chat with Martin about whatever you want, and he's going to be able to help you. And then if you need more consulting, he's willing to do that as well. Anything you want to add to that before I move on?
No, hit it.
Okay. And we're on Facebook and Twitter, and Twitter's better than it was, and YouTube, and they are all platforms that censor things that are not what the mainstream medical establishment wants you to know. So we are very careful on what we say here. If you want to get Martin uncensored on Sunday on Telegram, where he talks for an hour about different topics, and you can ask questions about anything you want, then the URL is also in the description. That's it. And it is noon Eastern and 9 Pacific every Sunday.
And we'll move it to some other day. Martin wants to have his Sundays off.
Yeah. We'll probably have it right after this, because I really liked this one guy who he would have a live free to everybody show, and then he would talk about what he was going to talk behind the paywall. We're not going to charge you, but on Telegram, and I thought that was really well done. So If you want us uncensored, make sure you make a note of this and keep coming. By the way, like, subscribe, hit the notification so you don't miss anything. We'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, please subscribe to our channels. It really makes a difference.
Yeah, and the liking and everything, commenting is really good. Next week, the vitamin D disaster. We'll be talking about that. And that's it for this show. Don't go away, though. We're going to be having our after party right after this. All right.
So unstructured and still censored.
That's right. So we have a couple questions. I think maybe we should deal with those. Stan, who is talking about his cold.
Okay, so Stan has this natural grandmother thing that has ginger, lemon, and garlic. So garlic is the famous thing. It's known as the Jewish penicillin. It's antibacterial and antiviral. It's possible that your garlic is not as healthy as it used to be, as in God knows where you're getting it. The other thing with garlic could be that, well, garlic delivers a lot of sulfur to the body, so it's maybe you can up the dose of sulfur. One concern I have, Stan, is that you live in a tropical environment. If you have mold in your home or work, whatever that is, black mold, aspergillus, that sort of thing, if that's in your environment, you will get worse and worse and worse, and it's just terrible. So please be a detective. See if you can find, I mean, the way they build houses out here is that we actually have gyprock or sheetrock, which is 2 sheets of paper with some gypsum between them, and then we have wood studs, and in that space between these 2 sheetrocks on either side, we have airspace, sometimes filled with insulation, but oftentimes with water pipes. And if you have water leaking into that space that you do not see, you will have black mold growing on the inside between the sheets of gyprock. And if that's happening, you will be very toxic and you will be very ill from that. So see if that's a problem, because if ginger, lemon, garlic isn't working, you probably have a mold infestation, and I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, that's actually really brilliant, Martin. I had a friend who was very sick for 10 years, and finally, nothing to do with his sickness, decided he would change his bed. So he took apart his water bed, and he discovered how much black mold there was in the not in the water bed, but underneath the water bed, from the leakages and everything. So he got rid of all that, cleaned it all up, and he was really, really well. So if you're in a toxic environment, it doesn't matter how much good stuff you're putting in if it's not compensating for the toxicity of the environment. So I think that's a really good advice.
Right. Otherwise, ginger is a stimulant. It's a wonderful thing. Lemon is a wonderful thing. For one thing, vitamin C is famously good at helping your immune system. Potassium, which is potassium citrate, is the main mineral inside of lemons, is wonderful stuff. All of that should be working for you. That it should be working. When you're saying it's not working, that must mean that something else is in play.
Right. Celestial Soul has a couple really good comments and questions here.
Oh,
So
good.
what are your thoughts on C60 and do you carry the product?
Yeah,
We
Scott,
love it. And yes.
yeah, and Scott, it's called Intense 60. Look it up and post it. So carbon 60 is a form of carbon that's got 60 atoms of carbons stuck together. So if you could visualize a soccer ball, it's made of combinations of 6-sided and 5-sided pieces of leather. And each of those corners, well, there are 60 corners on a soccer ball. And each of those corners would have an atom of carbon. And this creates a space within. So it's like a hollow ball of carbons. And what happens a lot is that hydrogen likes to hide inside of that space. And then the electrons that are stored on the inside are actually becoming freely available, which means the following. The C60 is a universally great distributor or transporter of electrons. And electrons are the universal currency of all exchanges. Oxidation is taking away of an electron, and reduction is the giving back of the electron. And we know this as antioxidant, because aging is acidity, is stealing of the electrons. And if you don't have enough of them, then you're going to be aging faster than your expected rate of aging. So carbon 60 has been found to help with slowing down aging. The famous study had the rats living twice as long as what was expected of a normal rat. Therefore, two issues. One, you need an excellent transport of the electrons. C60 will provide that. But the second, you actually need a supply of these electrons. Carbon 60 doesn't deliver any, it just moves them efficiently. For that, you need to either do grounding, because you get electrons from direct contact with the planet, or you need to be eating foods that have been grown in the ground and they need to be raw. So this would be raw juicing, like raw carrot juice, or cucumber, celery, I don't know, whatever you like juicing, beets, apples, carrots, all of that. Or you need to be walking barefoot on moist ground.
So since you're talking about juicing, I want to share my juice recipe. I love it. I take 2 apples, I take 2 beets, I take 3 or 4 carrots, depending on the size of the carrots. And by the way, it's never the same every time. It's just kind of like, these are like round numbers. Sometimes celery, and I take 3 or 4 cloves of garlic. Yeah, it has a bite. And then about this much of ginger.
Yeah.
And if I have turmeric, which when I was doing this was not something easily found and very expensive, if you did find it, but now I see it all over the place, then I would take some turmeric and put it in as well.
Yeah, you can put a big piece or small piece of turmeric just like ginger, because they both look about the same. Ginger is kind of slight yellow, whereas turmeric is richly orange, but on the outside they look very similar.
And it's a great juice. I get like an 12 ounce glass and just chug it. Well, I chug it down because the longer it's exposed to the air, the more the oxidation occurs. So, and plus, I don't want to stand around drink when I've got other things to do now that I'm pumped up.
The garlic will make it hard to make it into a enjoyable experience.
Yeah. So, okay. So Celestial Soul had a second part, which was, we thank you very much for this. We've been she says, I've been watching the replays on Telegram. Very helpful. I've been missing the lives. So the replays are great.
Good. Well, I need questions, right? Scott and I have a calendar in mind, but we really would like to make it your show rather than my show, in the sense that I want to be relevant to what's on your mind.
Yeah. So Jokad has a last question. What do you think about eating certain foods based on your blood type?
Okay. The blood type, which was developed by Peter D'Adamo, is related to your blood type, which is either the O, A, B, or AB. It tells you really well what you should not eat. It doesn't discuss the combinations. It doesn't discuss what you should eat. It only tells you what you will be not good at metabolizing. So, for example, the blood type O's do badly with grain, dairy, eggs, chicken eggs. So they are the hunters, right? Blood type B, most of which are people from the Middle East, like Jews and Arabs, do badly on pork and do badly on bottom feeder fish, like shrimp and lobster. So guess what? The Old Testament, that's the shared Bible, it talks about not eating pork and not eating shrimp. That's because you don't have all the necessary equipment in your body genetically to deal well with that. Blood type A's, I think, don't do well with chicken. I'd have to look. The book is behind me here on the shelf. If I have to look it up, I can. Anyway, eating by your blood type tells you what not to eat. And it's pretty darn close. So if you did your metabolic typing with us, and if you told us what your blood type was, the results that we send you would be also telling you in a nice list what foods you probably should not even bother trying because they're just not going to work well for you. And if you're a AB like myself, then God bless you, because you cannot eat anything what A cannot eat and B cannot eat. You have the double list.
So you're just saying that there's a lot of food that you really shouldn't be eating?
Oh, yeah. I have a pretty long list of stuff that doesn't do well. I still eat them. I just know that I need to compensate, right? Like it's not going to knock me over to eat some chicken, which is on the blood type A list. I just know that I'm going to be performing less well than if I had, for example, lamb the night before, because that is the A list, as in yes to that.
I had a rack of lamb in a small town just on the side of the Swiss Alps. It was
so good.
So good. And then it had and of course, so here's another thing when it comes to, fixing your metabolism. Like, this meal was mouth-watering, and it had like this much, maybe this much, I don't know if I can get it there, and this thick of mashed potatoes, and the lamb was on top of it. Okay. And the mashed potatoes had garlic and other things in it. It was just delicious. But it was like 2 racks of lamb and this little bit of potato. It wouldn't even have been like, it would have been a half a potato in the United States and Canada. No more, mashed up. And then there was a couple of vegetables. And I was satisfied and full. So, eating less makes it possible.
Yeah, a smaller portion is possible. The oversized portions are really only for people who do extreme physical work.
Yeah. So it's like,
you can get used to it. You can get used to a smaller portion, just like you can get used to eating a large portion.
Right. Well, I think if there's 2 people going out for dinner, you order 1 meal.
Get an extra plate.
Yeah. Get an extra plate because, when I was in Colombia, that's every time I went out, I I ate half the plate, and then I took it, and I had
Actually,
this friend of mine took me to I think it was called like Big Daddy, and it was a small restaurant, and he expanded across the street. So you actually had two restaurants, but the same chef, cook, and everything else. And I just wanted ribs. So I love ribs. I guess I'm not from the Middle East. And so the plate was like this big, and the ribs were this big. Like they were falling over, right? And I had two ribs, and so like there's 10 left, right? So I said, I'll take it to go, right? So, and I was staying with my friend. So he and I, for 3 days, ate the ribs. Like it took us 3 days because we weren't going to we could have chowed down but that wasn't the point. The point was just eat, not hungry, great, stop. And it was 3 days for these ribs. It was just amazing. Yeah. And they were delicious.
All right.
So yeah, you've got to, make sure you don't eat too much. All right, so this is our after party time. If anybody has any questions, put them in the comments. We'd be happy to talk to you about them, deal with them. Want to remind everybody that we are live. Where is that? On Telegram on Sundays at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, t.me/life&co. And this is where we tell the uncensored versions of everything. We know on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, unfortunately, if you say anything that it goes against the mainstream medical tyrants, oops, did I say that out loud? They will shut us down, so we don't want to do that. But we are uncensored on Sundays for now. We're going to probably change the date. And every Thursday, we are live on YouTube and Facebook at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. And so, Martin, before we go, I would like you to share, and I'm putting you on the spot, so hopefully you have the answer. I'd like you to share an experience that one or two of your customers have had in the last week or month where they've tried something and go, oh, wow, this has really helped.
Well, I'll tell you, I have been talking to this one particular person for, I don't know, 2-3 months. She started, when she called, she said, I have been sick for over a year. I have incessant pain in the back, just under my ribs, and I'm hurting and hurting and hurting. And I have had every test known to man, colonoscopy and endoscopy and blood test and this test and everything test, and nothing's helping. And I'm in chronic pain, and I'm in, I don't know, just hurt. So I start telling her things, what I think she should be doing. And I'm saying, look, nothing gets better until you detox. You have to take the detox. Well, she doesn't. And she calls again in tears, just crying. And I'm saying, well, are you doing what I'm telling you? No. And so she keeps going for more tests, and she ends up with, I don't know, some problem with the parathyroid. They find a nodule, they operate on it. It still doesn't deal with the back. Finally, I ended up talking to a friend of hers who said, I went for a visit. I didn't realize they moved into a new house. That new house smells like a new car. It's got phenomenal level of volatile compounds in the air. And it's a smart house. They have it loaded with electronics and Wi-Fi and everything. I'm thinking, well, there we go. This person cannot get better until they deal with the air and the electromagnetic stuff. And it never came up. Right? I keep saying, well, because of what you have, I need you to start detoxing. You need to detox your environment. And yet she did not connect that detox your environment is, we just built a new house.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not the best always, right? It took me several conversations to finally put it together, but
Well, it's like a detective story where you're half blind because they're not giving you all the information that's available to help you solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
And most people really have no idea how toxic their environment is and how toxic electricity is. Like we have these wires, the wires aren't, the electricity goes through all these wires. The wires are in the walls, they're in the ceilings, because there's lights. And
but the Wi-Fi is worse than that.
And the Wi-Fi is worse than that. So, turn off your Wi-Fi at night, see what happens.
That's one. Or bring one of those Blue Shield devices into your house and have it on all the time. It will mitigate the effects of the negative.
Right.
You have one of those portables. Do you still have it? You lost it somewhere?
I don't think I ever had a portable.
Oh, yes, you did.
Well, then I lost it a long time ago. So I hope we're saying it right. Jaco,
how toxic is RF? Well,
first of all, what is RF?
Radio frequencies.
Okay.
It's like this. If you step out of your door to go shopping and you have to walk 3 miles, on a sunny day with low wind, it's just a sunny day, low wind walk. If you're walking it on a stormy day against the wind with the sleet hitting you on the face, it's going to be a much worse of a walk. You still make it to the store and you still make it back. The Wi-Fi is like that. It's making your body suffer the effects of the environment. You're toxic all around. To give you the specifics of it, it's called voltage-gated calcium channel. The voltage-gated means that when there is this EMF hitting your cell, it's causing the cell to release calcium. And calcium is the signaling molecule for stress, fight or flight, anxiety. So you just keep hitting it with this fear, 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 fear signal. So as you're dumping it in, you need to have sufficient amount of magnesium to counteract it. But most of all, you're actually having to deal with it. So you have this fear response, right? Every time it hits you, you need to do something about it. So it's like walking upwind in a strong storm. You will be a lot more tired at the end of your walk relative to what it would have been had it been sunny and no wind. And that's what Wi-Fi does to you. It makes everything worse.
Well, that was certainly optimistic.
Yeah, cheers. Well, there's this famous test. These Danish high school girls did it. They took seeds. They were sprouting the seeds. And they put one set of seeds right next to the Wi-Fi router and another set of seeds, same batch, same lights, same temperature, just not right with the Wi-Fi router. And the ordinary seeds sprouted in 6 days this tall, and the Wi-Fi treated sprouted minuscule, nothing, dead, right. No life.
So in our EMF constant field, we are always stressed.
Yeah, it's constantly putting negative pressure against you. It's just always pushing against you.
So one thing that we should do is make sure that we rest, that we meditate, that we do things to, take the stress down.
Yeah, go for a walk in the forest if you can.
Yeah. Get out. Yeah, that's right. Like get out to the parks, get out to the forest, try to be in the country.
And
so Martin, is this one of the reasons why when people have a 2-week vacation or a 1-week vacation and they fly from wherever they are to a beach, they feel so much better and relaxed and everything else?
I mean, it's one of the things, right? Like you just dump all your stresses away. The autoimmune conditions develop as a consequence of being stressed. And these stressors we have two types, right? We have triggers and thresholds. Threshold is how big is your resilience? How much can you resist? And triggers is what's coming at you that's going to make you feel worse. And these triggers can be weather, like, an oncoming storm is putting pressure on you. EMF, the existing EMF is putting pressure on you. Eating food that's less than optimal. Inhaling smelly things, volatile organic compounds, right? Like you're piling it on. You're piling on the triggers. And if your threshold is this much and your triggers are this much, you're going to blow up. So at some point, you exhaust your capacity to resist and you break down. For some people, it's never. For some people, it's in their 50s. For some people, it's in their 20s. It just depends what hits you, how hard it is. I broke down at age 26 because I had a massive amount of toxic mercury added to my load, and I couldn't carry it. My body just caved in. So the question, do EMF devices help reduce the negative effects? I promise you that the Blue Shield machine will do that. We sell that. There are two types. There's the passive and the active. The passive ones are usually in the form of stickers or things like that. And they do help. They are balancing things. And then we have active ones like the Blue Shield, which are constantly sending out a signal. So.
And his next question was, how could it be tested and proven? I think there are.
I'll answer that. The answer is in the secondary effect. It's not that you're not trying to measure the thing itself. You try to demonstrate how it affects you. I mean, I just talked about the seed experiment not long ago where these gals were documenting that seeds that they were sprouting next to a Wi-Fi router did not sprout, whereas the other ones did. Likewise, for yourself, you bring in a Blue Shield device, turn it on, and all of a sudden, a whole lot of the stressors that you may have, that you perceive, will go away. I remember there's a testimonial on the page with the Blue Shield. A woman, single mother with a teenage daughter, I think 17 years old. Endless teenage drama, the mother and daughter fighting and having issues with one another. She wrote, 2 hours after we brought it in and turned it on, peace settled over this home. The drama ended.
Right. People don't understand how big an impact this can have.
Irritation was gone. The irritability disappeared. The short-temperedness went away. And this is what the calcium channel will do. It will keep you in the anxiety mode.
Right. And Martin, there are scanners that will tell you how much.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they're tri-field meters. The simplest one is you take a typical AM radio, you tune it between two stations where it gives you the white noise, and you walk around with it throughout your house. And every time you come close to something that's a source of interference, it will go.
Right.
And but so who cares? It's all around you. Just take it for granted. It is. If it's not inside your house, it's your neighbor, up the street, up the floor. If you're in an apartment, you're on four sides. You cannot control it. The only thing you can do is bring something good into your space and turn it on.
Yeah. Deal with it is really all you can do with it, right? Like deal with however you deal with it. There are different things you can use.
Assume it's all around you if you live in an industrialized 21st century society. No question.
I really liked your analogy about walking in
on a windy day.
Yeah. The sleet and everything. Yeah. I don't know why I'm getting feedback.
That's probably my microphone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you don't have your ear thing in.
No.
All right. So any more questions? We are in our after party. We're coming up to the end of our time together today. Oh yes, there is.
Wendy says hola.
Hola, Wendy. Good to see you. And just remind everybody, every Thursday at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, we're here, and we'll have a live, we'll talk about something, then we'll have a live after party afterwards, answer any questions that you've got.
Oof, another one, blood test versus hair analysis test. That's a really cool question. Now, this is worth about 25 minutes of a talk. But in short, it's this. Whatever comes into your body is in your blood for a short amount of time. If your body can get rid of it quickly, it'll sequester it. It'll hide it. So especially heavy metals like mercury and lead and such, especially the stuff that's put into these shots that go into your body, that gets pushed away very quickly. It gets sequestered fast. So the tests that say, well, it's no longer in the blood, it must be gone. Well, no, it's not gone. It's in your brain. Now, of course, if you wanted to prove it, it will be hard. Nobody's going to let you sacrifice a bunch of babies to do a test. But the test was done using monkeys. This particular scientist had the injections done that were using, I think it was called thimerosal, which is the mercury used in injections. And they proved it. It was going in the brain. So it was gone from the bloodstream quickly. Now, the hair grows slowly. It takes about 2 weeks to grow, and I don't know what, a centimeter, half an inch. So I guess maybe an inch a month. And so when you take that and analyze it, it will give you a long-term view of what's going on in your body. So it'll tell you how well mineralized you are and what toxins you carry, provided your body is capable of detoxing. People with certain syndromes, genetics, are actually unable to detox anything. So their hair may appear fine, but they still will have symptoms. So I'll take you right back to the beginning. You can spend $150 on a hair analysis, but you could spend just the same $150 on zeolite doing a detox and be ahead. Because if you're really a curious person, you'll have a hair analysis first, then you do the detox itself, and then you do another hair analysis to prove the point that it was reduced. Enough people have done it. Just spend the money on the detox. Don't even bother.
Well, particularly since we're in an environment where we know everybody's toxic.
That's the point. Like,
so
there are no exceptions. As Eskimos in Alaska, done by National Geographic, had
they got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for all those questions. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you next week. And don't forget, on Sunday, if you want to get us uncensored on Telegram, it's t.me/lifeandco, and it's noon Eastern, 9 Pacific.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.